Welcome to this telecast of Around Nigeria in 5 minutes. I'm afraid today we're probably going to go beyond the 5-minute limit, so be patient with me. Now, just very recently, the president had, Bola Ahmed Tinubu had set up a committee to reform the tax laws of the country, and I studied parts of it, and I must say that they have done a brilliant job. All these people going around saying, oh, he brought the Lagos boys, he brought the Cardosos and the Edus and all these kind of people. I think they should just go and hide their heads in shame. Because studying that, tax reform bill is just an eye-opener as to revenues that Nigerians have been losing for lack of any coherent tax laws and people just flagrantly refusing to pay taxes, using the country. Even foreign nationals have looked onto this loophole and have been milking us dry with connivance from Nigerians. And this committee, I really must commend them. They've done a fantastic job. I looked at it and I thought, the first thought that came to my mind was like, excellent. These people, they know what they're talking about, okay? And I'll really encourage people to study that. It's not rocket science. It's not, I'm not an economist, okay? But I know, I run a small business, so I know a little bit about taxes elsewhere where people hopefully pay their taxes. Basically, a couple of things stand out to me. The basic principle here of that tax reform really is that lower taxes means more money in the pockets of people generally. And I don't want to start dividing them by class, but I will soon do, and I'll explain why. Because if you listen to their briefing that they had this morning, I just turned to my husband and I said, this is the simplest explanation of tax reforms and tax bills or whatever laws that I've ever heard anywhere. The gentleman who explained, what the taxes will do to the various groups in the country did a fantastic job, okay? So lower taxes means more money in the pockets of the poor. And, the woman selling moi akara, egusi and ugu and bitter leaf and all these kind of things, she doesn't have to, worry her head with, books, tax returns and all this kind of nonsense. She can just do her business unhindered. The only thing I'll add there is that maybe the federal governments can extend it so that the extortionists in the local governments and the states will not continue to extort these people. That's the only caveat I'll add to that. Okay, and then there's what's called a tax threshold. Most of you who have worked elsewhere where taxes are paid, I'm sorry to use that constantly, where taxes are actually paid, you have to earn up to a certain amount for you to qualify to pay taxes. Now, if you earn below a certain minimum amount, the government doesn't, anticipate that you'll pay taxes. However, everyone needs to have a tax file number, okay? I won't go into all those technicalities right now. You still have to do a tax return. And especially if you're working for government, for businesses who, take the equivalent of VAT and so on. So you are on the register already. So you make a tax return, they will see straight away, what you earn. Those who work with the government, their taxes are often taken from source. So, no mago over there, it's known. And if you're doing some other business that's bringing you some revenue, again, because most such businesses, will pay to your account. So you add all those things together, and then if you've got an expenditure, whatever you spent, you put it all together, and you send it in quarterly or 6 monthly, or however your country chooses to do it. So at the end of the day, if whatever your income is falls below that threshold, you don't pay any tax at all. And in fact, if for small businesses, for instance, if you've made purchases and so on and so forth, and you barely made the margins, because sometimes you can have like capital purchases that dip into your finances, the government will actually give you a tax refund, so you get some money back, which you can now reinvest into your business. Okay, so the poor end up basically not paying any tax. Okay, and I would love for the market woman to be left alone. The market woman selling ugu, selling tomatoes, selling gari, selling all these kind of things, they should be left alone just to do their business. I don't see them earning an amount that should make the federal government any richer. Okay, now let's go to the rich. Now, I know a lot of people like to say, oh, don't give taxes to the rich, they're already rich. No, because when the rich, don't give tax relief to the rich, when you put a very heavy burden of tax on the rich, well, it means then they don't have enough to hire more people, to reinvest into their business, to expand, and so on. So the economy stays stagnant, and then employment also becomes stagnant. That's number one. Number two, if your taxes are too, punitive to the rich, they have the Monacos and all kinds of countries where they are tax havens. They will just go and put their monies over there. So it's not circulating in your economy. So you are losing actually. So if you give some form of tax relief, and I'm not saying don't tax them at all, some form of tax relief, even to the rich, it gives the company, some incentive, like I said, to reinvest in capital projects, buy new equipment, whatever type of business they're doing, whether it's buying a truck for, a building business, or a cement business, for instance, buying, another tractor, and so on. Another tractor means somebody else has to drive that tractor. So that is a job. That's an employment that has been given, okay? And more people will be needed to load the tractor with the cement, just as an example. Now, there's this gentleman called Atlafa. Some of you may not be familiar with him. I think that man should have won the Nobel Prize in economics, but okay, because he's not a leftist, he's not a Democrat, or however you want to put it, or a labor-leaning person. He was a Republican who worked with President Ronald Reagan, and he brought up the Atlafa curve, or the Atlafa law, and the curve goes, just in the way curves go. The higher the taxes get, over time, the unemployment will be high, okay? And the economy will slow down, okay, to a crawl. So if you have the y-axis and the x-axis, and you start to draw it, and that is that is the tax going up. So the area underneath that tax is, the employment opportunities. So you will see that the higher you get, the more unemployment you get, the more the economy slows down, and so on and so forth. But the reverse is true. When you lower taxes, you're coming down. Unemployment goes down, okay? And there's more money in people's pockets, and the economy, starts to boom. And you can check this out. Most Republican governments have always, well, let me not say always, okay, quite often leave the country with very, very low unemployment rates. You can check it right now in the United States. Inflation has slowed down from when whoever was in charge, and the unemployment is the lowest it has been in decades. Okay, and this is a country that's assisting to save Ukraine and all other kind of places. So in essence, you don't need a degree in economics, okay, to understand this tax law. It was explained brilliantly by that gentleman. You just need to study it, and it's a win-win for everyone, okay? It's a win for the poor. It's a win for people who actually want to do genuine, honest business. Because, I won't go into the nitty-gritty. Sometimes businesses get how will I say, a tax holiday so that they can establish, but the calculation will have already been done, knowing that once they're established, the income they will generate for their business and the taxes and the employment they will give will be well worth the tax break that they've had. So it's not a bad thing to give tax relief even to the rich. One thing, though, that the country needs to do, which I don't think they have anything like that, unless if you're working for the government, is to, it's good that they have the NIN, so they can kind of trace people, okay? But people also need to have, either a tax file number or an ABN to show that, you're a business, so that at the end of the tax quarter, you can file, a tax, your tax papers to the government. And then at the end of the financial year, they, based on the quarterly filings that you've done, they'll work out how much you've earned, how much you've spent, and how much you're entitled to. For example, in the United States, the tax burden, people always talk about, especially the Democrats, they keep going on about, they're giving tax break to the rich, tax, blah, blah, blah. Actually, the tax burden of that country is borne by the top 10% of the rich, okay? The Bezos, the Musks, those kind of people is borne by them. And even of that 10%, the highest tax burden is borne by the top 1%, okay? A lot of people in the United States do not pay tax, okay? I'm not talking about those people who are practicing what we call smart accounting. They just do not pay taxes, because by the time they do their tax returns and take out their expenditures, blah, 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 they end up getting money back from the government, or they end up not being taxed, or they don't even reach the threshold to be taxed. So they're not taxed at all. I remember when Bill Clinton was the president, for the first time in a very long time, in conjunction with Newt Gingrich, who is a Republican, I don't know if you follow their politics, they managed to balance the budget. Now, that is what I call cooperation, because all we see in the Nigerian polity is, name calling, name dropping, nothing to do with the economy at all. Nothing to do with what will benefit the Nigerian people. It's just, this one is stupid, waka, shege, idiot, this kind of nonsense. No, we need real academic discourse about how do we move the economy forward. One thing that impresses me about the president is that despite all these talks left and right, he just gets on with the job. He just gets the job going. He gets the right people, and I don't care if the right people all come from the same state. I really don't give a hoot. I just want a good economy that my siblings can thrive in, that I can thrive in, that my children can invest in, and be confident that their investment will be protected. Thank you for listening.